I'm gonna make a new gun stock for 77 Ruger 7717. Part one, I guess, because it's gonna take a while when I try and select the wood. So I searched around the house, and this was what I found. That long slab there, I was saving to make a table one day. There's a smaller slab of that is a monkey pod. It's actually quite terrible wood for gun stock. It might not be strong enough, but I have some cherry wood there on the side too. It would probably be much better for a gun stock, but I have no idea of the design, and I would have to glue up the cherry wood to get a big enough piece. So since I don't have a design yet, I'll just use this monkey pod. Cut the slab in half. Looks like I can make two stocks out of it, or maybe even this one piece I can make two stocks out of. So since I got the wood selected, not really by choice, but that's just the only thing I have that will work. Need to come up with some kind of design. Again, I have no idea really how to make a gun stock. We're just gonna go and make one. Which is kind of strange. I mean, if you really think about it, you can buy a gun stock for 150, 200 bucks. If you want to make one, it'll probably cost you more. If you went down and bought maple or birch, well, anyways, where I live, if you bought maple or birch, you probably need maybe 3 pieces, 8 inches wide by 3 feet long, by 1 inch thick, so you can glue up. And that probably is going to run about definitely over 100 bucks. So, here's my design. I figured I'd cut that log in half. I can make 2 pieces of stock out of it, and that actually didn't work out because there's some knots and some rot in the wood. So even though I had the design, basically all I can get out of it is somewhat dimensions, length and width. So since that wasn't going to work out, I decided to just draw it out on a piece of cardboard. Use a straight edge for the top line and the bottom, and the rest is kind of sort of freehand. I mean, the straight lines on the stock and the front forend and the bottom part, but just kind of drew out what I kind of would want to do. And here we go. Let's see, what I drew on paper, we would get 2 out of this wood, but because of that knot and rot, we probably only can get 1 out of it. Just kind of figure out the best way to utilize that piece of wood. So once I figure out where that cutout will fit, it's just a matter of tracing it and cutting it out on a bandsaw. There we go, got it all traced out. Probably can use those other pieces to make something else, maybe a shotgun stock, 4 piece. This part actually took much longer than I thought it would. I mean, my bandsaw has a bimetal blade on it. So we roughed it out. This is roughly sort of kind of close to the design, maybe. Came out just a tad shorter than I wanted, but that's okay. I guess we're at 30 inches, so I have no idea what a stock really measures, but mine's going to be 30 inches. we need one reference point, so we're going to use the top of the front section for a reference point. Just going to put it on the joiner here. We're going to run that down there and make it flat. Then we can base all the measurements off of that flat surface once we get it flat. Just difficult to do with the camera, so couldn't really show me cutting. Needed 2 hands to cut, and I'm going to need 2 hands to use this joiner, so I'm going to have to adjust that fence, which is stuck. And we'll probably run it down there, maybe about 4 or 5 passes until we get it nice and flat, that whole section there. Probably run it a couple times over the comb, just a tad, to give me one flat surface to get a reference point off of. Because the comb actually is a slightly different angle than the front section. See that part there? It says probably not the best wood for Gunstock. I had it on top of the joiner, was pushing it around, it fell off, and that piece cracked off. So somewhere down the line, now we're going to have to change the design again to incorporate that missing piece. I guess I could glue it up, but... And here we go. I lost somewhere about an hour, 2 hours worth of footage of me routing out that top. Either the camera overheats or something's wrong with my memory card, but somehow I missed all of the real important parts about routing out this Gunstock. Anyway, here I am. The parts we missed were me routing out the channel for the trigger to drop through. Actually, it didn't go all the way through. My router bit's not long enough, but the channel where the trigger goes, and the magazine housing, and where the barrel goes. And actually, those are the only 3 parts I measured. What I did was I started where the front screw would go in and secure to the receiver. We measured that down from the top, which I made flat, as a reference point, and we routed that place. And we took a measurement off of that, and we used that as a reference point for how far down to route the rear screw or bolt where the receiver touches the rear, and how deep for the barrel channel. And in the barrel channel we went another, what was it, 3 or 4 thousandths deeper, I think, in the barrel channel, because I was going to free float the whole thing anyway. Those are the only 3 parts I measured. Everything else is just like you see right there. You just put a piece of board up against the side and run the router down. Keep going back and forth until you get to fit. I used a whole bunch of methods to get this to fit. I mean, first I used just by eye, look down where I need to route out with the router bit. Then I'd mark it with a pencil and route it out. And then I used some grease, put some grease on the receiver, drop it in there, and then pull it out. And then whatever sections it was touching, I'd route down. I know there's a lot of methods. I remember a long time ago I used to watch a gunsmithing video. They put soot on the whatever piece they're trying to fit, and they'd put it in and pull it out, and the soot would be stuck on the wood, and that's where they'd carve out. I had some chalk, and I had all kinds of stuff I could have used, but I guess I was kind of lazy. I had grease on the table. I just slapped it on that receiver, pushed it in, pulled it out. Wherever it was touching, I just route. Pretty much just like what you see there. I'd find a straight edge, get it clamped in there. It's all kind of by eye. And if you went and measured every single piece, I guess it's possible, but somehow I don't see it fitting very nicely anyway. Plus, a lot of sections I was going to oversize anyway, so that we could bed it in there. So as long as I had one straight edge to reference off of, I could run the router. And it's pretty much what I did, and it took quite a bit of time. If I had to do it again, I'm not sure if I do it exactly the same way. I have to think about it. I mean, it did work. It did seem to work, but no idea how anybody else has done it. I'm assuming everybody would kind of do it the same way. Or I guess maybe not. I mean, I guess most people would probably use a plunge router, but chose not to use that because it's quite big, and a lot of the bits I was going to use are 1/4" shank. So I prefer the trim router. I mean, especially the battery operated one, no cord, and light and easy to maneuver around, easier to see around. I mean, I'm getting kind of old. My eyes aren't that good. Could actually use more light on here, but didn't want to block the view too much. But for sure, I would recommend using a trim router and a cordless one at that if you're going to do this. Made things much easier. Maybe it's not as precise, but I mean, can work with a smaller table area. So the setup's much easier. The rest of it is very tedious, back and forth, trying to mark the receiver, fit it in, see where it's touching. It's not going all the way down yet, so something's bottoming out. So I just keep going back and forth, you know, either chalking or putting something on the receiver, fitting it back in, going in with the router and hitting it again. Keep going back and forth. It probably took me a good hour just tediously cutting little pieces, pulling it out, marking it, putting it back in, cutting little pieces, pulling it out, putting it back in. So I guess my method could be improved here, but at the time it seemed like the easiest way to do it. Instead of measuring each piece, or I guess I could have indexed off the original stock, but I have no idea why I did it this way. I know for sure I wanted to make certain areas a little deeper, you know, cut it a little farther back so there'd be room for the beating process. But anyway, this is how it ended up, and I kept doing that until my my memory card ran out, and finally got it to fit eventually. There we go. This is probably the next day. Now I got the whole top to fit. Now it's just a matter of getting the bottom to fit. Okay, now the last part I have to do is just get the boat to fit in there. I mean, the receiver barrel thing drops in just fine. So the last part of this to finish up the fitting process will be getting, I guess, the boat to fully engage. I mean, I just roughed out that little cut earlier, so now it's gonna file it down until it fits. And that kind of concludes the part one. I mean, just the general fitting of all the components. I started working on, I guess, part of the shaping. Just wanted to flatten out certain areas. I mean, there's a lot of leftover material, so just wanted to get a base rough shape before I started contouring. And, I had to use a bit of the planer and the belt sander to take down certain sections, but right about here, I'm thinking I have the general shape that I want everything to be at, and everything fits. So